We're currently bike packing our way to the top of Mount Olympus in Greece. And of course, you know this, we here at GCN love bike packing, but it hasn't always been plain sailing. We've made plenty of mistakes along the way. Oh no!
Yeah, so coming up in this video, we're going to give you all the tips and tricks to stop you making a bike packing disaster. Trust me, this one's worth a watch.
Yeah.
First off, an important one, the bike. Now, choosing the right bike for the terrain you're going to be riding on is absolutely imperative. If you're going on a longer road ride with your bike packing gear, then getting a road bike is probably going to be more suited than a gravel bike. Equally though, if you're doing a mix of gravel and road, then having a bike like this, a gravel bike, will be perfect for that. The other thing is to think about your gears. I would choose an easier gear. That way, when you're fully laden and you're heading up those climbs, you're able to shoot up them than getting logged down in a big, heavy gear. Disc brakes are also a preference. Now, the fully laden bike becomes more heavy. That way, when you go to stop, it can take a while for you to slow down and scrub off that speed. But disc brakes have that better stopping performance. So, with a fully laden bike, disc brakes are my go-to. The other thing to think about is mud guards. Now, if you're riding in some pretty grim weather, then getting some mud guards will protect you from getting soggy and wet and cold, especially for those longer journeys. And when it comes to frame protection, you can get these stickers and frame protectors that you can put under your bags so you don't rub that lovely paint job you've got on your bike. That is the top tips for choosing the right bike.
Packing too much is another common bike packing mistake. I've done it myself, don't worry if you have too, and it can be easily done. I'm using a pannier rack with 2 pannier bags on the back there compared to Hank, who's using a bit of a lighter setup, and it can be easy to get carried away and stuff so much in there. But just think about what you're taking with you. 9 times out of 10, you don't need all that stuff. Try and be brutal when you're packing. Cull some items you think are a 50-50 choice. Wash your clothes as you go. Bring a small bottle, washing up liquid. If you find it to stop, give your clothes a bit of a rinse, and also just embrace the bike packing way of life. You'll find it easier on those climbs, you carry less, you'll enjoy the ride a little bit more, you'll be able to soak in those views. And you won't get to the end of the trip, unpack your bags, and find a whole heap of clothes you never even used. Think about what sort of food you're bringing on your bike packing trip, where your resupply options will be. You don't want to get caught out with no food and not be able to pick any up. Big mistake also that I made was buying pot noodle, carrying it with me to the campsite in one of my frame bags, not securing it properly, got bashed all over the place. I got to camp and found pot noodle everywhere in my bag. Try and avoid that one.
The other thing is to mix good sports nutrition bars with real foods, especially if you're doing those longer bike packing adventures. Bananas, sandwiches are perfect. The next thing, and to reiterate Connor's point, make sure you drink enough fluids. Electrolytes will help keep you nice and hydrated in the burning hot sun, but knowing exactly where water is, so you're not stranded in the middle of nowhere with no liquid. It's also good for cooking.
Not being able to make coffee in the morning is an absolute disaster for me, and I'm sure for many of you at home, it'll be the same. What I like to do to avoid missing out on a good cup of coffee, bring a stove with me. I've got a real small one, which you can see attached to this gas canister here. The thing with gas is it's very powerful, you boil water quickly, but if you are doing a long trip, it can be quite hard to pick up new gas canisters along the way, and sometimes you might have to change your route to find one. If that's the case, you're thinking of going on an epic, maybe consider getting an alcohol burner. You can fill this with methylated spirits, which can be a little bit easier to find, and also you can put them in smaller bottles, which are easy to store in your bags. This is obviously pretty chunky. It's the smallest one they had in the shop. The way I like to make my coffee when I'm bike packing is pretty simple. I get pretty fine ground coffee. I put it in my mug, boil the water, and I leave it for 3 or 4 minutes, let the coffee settle. Called a cowboy coffee, easy thing to do, least gear possible needed to make a coffee, and you still get your caffeine fix.
Oh, we're overflowing. Oh, coffee. There we go, mate.
Thanks.
Right, coffee's ready. Another thing to remember is to make sure you can get to camp with a bit of light. What I'm saying here is you don't want to set up camp too late in the pitch black. There's nothing worse than fiddling your way through setting up your tent where you just can't see anything. That's where you lose things and you don't set up your tent properly. So try and get to camp nice and early with plenty of sunlight. That way you can enjoy the process of setting up your tent and getting a nice brew on and watch the nice sunset. But yeah, one thing to remember, don't be too late.
Where you're going to spend the night is an important one, obviously, if you're bike packing. I didn't actually camp to begin with when I first started bike packing. I started staying off in hostels, cheap hotels, and then I slowly built up to spending the night outdoors. I'd really recommend getting out there though, into nature and camping, staying in a bivvy bag or a tent. Bivvy bag is a great option because it's so compact and light and you can really get it onto your bike easily. Tent, you still get really packable options like the ones we're using here in Greece to go to the top of Mount Olympus. They'll give you a bit more shelter, which can be comfortable because you can get your stuff inside if it rains. You have a bit of a shelter to protect yourself from the bugs, and it just feels like you've got a little bit of a house away from home. But there's nothing wrong with staying in hostels either. You get to meet people, you get a nice shower, and it is a lot more comfortable if you're that way inclined. I still love bike packing down that route, but at the same time, I love being out here in the mountains. Look at that. But know which one you'd like to get into first, build your way up slowly, and that way you'll avoid any big disasters.
So there we have it, a few top tips that we really recommend you follow so you don't end up, well, having a bike packing disaster.
Like I've just done, I've been on a very bumpy road and I've accidentally left one of my bike packing bags open, and now I've lost my clothes. They've fallen out somewhere. So I'm in my underwear, a base there, which luckily stayed in, and some flip-flops.
Yeah, this is not a good look and it is definitely a disaster. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you in the next one. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it and let us know in the comment section below if we've missed anything. Right, you better get in your tent. You're embarrassing me.
It's all part of the adventure. It's all part of the adventure.
Have you just farted?